Hey there, I'm glad you're here. My name is Chris, and this is the Sons of Sever YouTube channel, where there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad gear. Today, we are talking about a pair of Vibram 5 fingers. Vibram is actually a new affiliate to the channel, so we think that we align very well with the mission of Vibram, which is to provide fantastic minimalist shoes to the world that are functional for your feet. They help your feet to function the way that they're meant to function by separating those toes and making it really as barefoot as possible. These shoes, for sure, are the most barefoot shoes that you can get into, and Eric and I really appreciate that. The shoe that I'm talking about today is the VTrek. Now these come in a couple different colors. They come in all black, a military green, and dark gray, which is this one, totally up my alley. And then there is a very flamboyant denim and red. So if you want those things to pop, then that would be the one that I recommend you go with. For this review, I want to go through some of the details that are listed on the Vibram website, and I'm going to basically give my opinions of the shoe as we go. We'll do our ratings, I'll do a wrap up with my opinion, and we will close it out. So starting with the details, there are only 5 categories for their details. The first one is weight, which is 6.5 ounces. Stupid light, just like every pair of Vibram 5 fingers. Next, it gets into the sole specs, which all it tells us is that it's a 4mm rubber mega grip outsole. It doesn't tell us anything about the thickness of the midsole, which it does have, because they have a little descriptor of the shoe above the details, and what it says is a nice polyurethane midsole with a bit of added thickness. So my guess, just from this shoe and from comparing it with my box mountain of other shoes that I've tried, I'm thinking that that midsole is somewhere between 2 and 4 millimeters. So overall, we're working with 6 to 8 millimeters of stack height, which is going to be a very important detail for a lot of people when it comes to how close to the ground we're going to get in this shoe. Moving on to the materials that make up the upper, it says that it is a 50-50 blend of wool and synthetic materials. And I will tell you, that upper is stupid soft. The next 2 are best uses and care instructions. I'm actually going to flop them, talk about the care instructions first, which are very simple: machine wash cold and air dry. I love Vibrams for this because a couple of the pairs that we have, I've gotten them real nasty and real dirty, and you just throw them in the washing machine, hang them out to dry, and they're good to go the next day. You are not going to get that same thing from a lot of shoe companies. The last thing I want to mention in the details is the best uses, because this is where there's going to be some controversy and some disagreement from me and my particular opinion. But it says the best uses are trekking, walking, climbing, and urban sport. Now this is going to depend on how you define those things. How do you define trekking? How do you define hiking and walking and climbing? And what is urban sport? I think what they're trying to get at is they kind of made this thing to work in a lot of different areas. Now, I would designate it in that category of jack of all trades, master of none. I actually think this does a couple things really, really well, and we'll talk about that when we get into the ratings, but I don't think it's as rugged as the name lets on. It's called the VTrek, but I'm not sure I would trek in this. Definitely not in wet conditions. It's not water or weatherproof in any way, shape, or form. So if you just walk through like wet grass after the sprinklers have been on for a couple minutes, you're gonna get water in there. Your socks, if you're wearing them, are going to get soaked. And while they do dry very quickly, it's not rugged, in my opinion, unless it can stand up to all weather conditions, which I don't think it's going to do. This is all going to lead us into our rating system. If you're new to the channel, we rate every product that comes through here on 3 categories. Those are function, feel, and versatility. It's going to get a score of 0 to 10 on all 3 of those, and then we're going to do an average at the end to give you our final product score. Just a little disclaimer, this is very subjective and based on my opinions, so take that with a grain of salt. Before we get into the ratings, I want to mention another affiliate on the channel, which is another shoe company, which is going to be a controversial point. Why am I affiliated with 2 shoe companies? Because they have different niches. So Vibram 5 fingers, going with a very specific play, thin, as minimalistic as humanly possible, keeping those toes spread apart, mimicking barefoot as much as they possibly can. Lem's shoes is a great option if you're looking for a more traditional style of shoes, still want that minimalism, but maybe a little bit more stack height, and also shoes in a wider range. So shoes anywhere from dress shoes all the way to extremely rugged hikers. Eric and I actually think that this is a fantastic company to get into your first pair of barefoot shoes because the outsoles and the stack height are relatively thick. Lots of barefoot shoe companies you see out there are going to try to keep their stack heights under like 8 millimeters, but that can be really hard on your feet when you're first starting and transitioning. So the nice thing about Lem's is their offerings are 0 drop, wide toe box, and flexible, which are all the things you want in a barefoot shoe, but they play with their stack heights. So the stack height on this, which is the Primal 2, is 11 millimeters, which is a really nice sweet spot for me when it comes to running. I love running in these things so much that about 3 or 4 weeks after I got them, I ran a half marathon in these guys. They also have the Primal Zen. I'll leave a card up here to our review of the Primal Zen so that you can go and check it out, which has a stack height of 15 millimeters, so a little bit thicker than this guy, and we highly recommend that as a first barefoot shoe for anyone. If you're interested in anything that I've talked about when it comes to Lem's shoes, then head down to the link in the description, navigate over to their website, and shop around for their wide array of barefoot style shoes. Now let's get into our first rating, which is function. So how does this thing function? In my opinion, for the things they set out for it, it's not going to function fantastically. If I was just rating it based on that, I'd probably give it like a 5. I'm actually going to give it a 7 because I've used it as a casual shoe and really liked it for that, but I've also used it a lot for weightlifting, a little bit for running. Not a great runner in my opinion, but if you wanted a shoe that you could lift in, run in, and just wear casually from Vibram, a pair of 5 fingers, this would be the one that I would recommend. So because of that, I'm gonna be a little bit more generous, and I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10 on the function. Moving on to the feel, we actually have 2 subcategories in feel, and that is how does it feel on the foot, how does it feel to your feet, and how is the ground feel of the shoe, what is the proprioception like underneath your foot when you're wearing the shoe. So starting with that first category, how does it feel on the foot? Really freaking good. If I was just rating it based on that, I'd probably give it a 10 out of 10 on feel. It's definitely not perfect, but it is a comfortable shoe. I love the high ankle. That's just a me thing. I would love to see them integrate their quick pull lacing system that just has the Velcro tab on it. This is one of, if not the only shoe that Vibram makes that has actual traditional laces. And while they do give it kind of this nice novel feel to them, I would rather have the quick pull tab. So it's going to get knocked a little bit for that. Now talking about the other side of feel, I think that the ground feel of this thing is actually really, really good. It is on the thicker end of the Vibram scale. Usually their shoes are closer to 5 or 6 millimeters in stack height. My guess is this is 6 to 8. I think that you can feel plenty under your feet. You feel very grounded. In my opinion, it definitely helps having those toes that spread apart, but I think also the lightness and the upper mixed with the sole itself, they all lend itself well to great proprioception underneath your foot. Pulling all of those considerations together, I've decided to give it an 8 out of 10 on the feel. Our last subject is probably the most interesting one, and that is versatility. Because if you were just reading their website, you'd think, man, these are the most versatile toe shoes I've ever seen. I just don't think they're quite there. Like I mentioned, not water or weatherproof in any way, shape, or form. They do have an insulated version, but as far as I can tell from looking at the details of that shoe, it is also not waterproof or resistant. So if you go out in snow, your feet might be warm until they get soaked, and then they're going to freeze. So I'm not going to recommend this for any wet activities. What I am going to recommend this for is everyday wear and going on walks in fair weather conditions, and then the gym. I think this is a great gym shoe. The week that I did nothing but toe shoes for our adventure vlog, you can go and watch that video. This was my go-to for lifting weights. I really like it for that. I think I've mentioned that a couple times in this review so far. So in my opinion, it's not going to get great scores for versatility, but I'm not going to tank it 100% either, because I do think it works in more than one situation. Giving it its final score for the versatility specifically, I'm going to give this guy a 6 out of 10. So for my final score and the wrap up, this guy is going to get a 7 out of 10, which is pretty good. Honestly, I would recommend this as a first pair of 5 fingers, especially if you're looking for one pair that's going to cover a good amount of basic needs. I would not wear the V-Trails, which we haven't done a review of yet, casually or to the gym. I wouldn't wear the V-Run Retro casually either. This one I would wear casually. You could wear as a runner if you really wanted to push it that far, and I think it does really, really well in the gym. So it can cover a handful of bases. Things I would like to see with a future version of this shoe, and Vibram has been really awesome with their communication. They are taking some of our feedback. Whether or not that will manifest itself in an actual product, we will see later down the road. But for now, what I want to say is I would love to see a weatherproof version of this with a little bit more ruggedness between the toes. The toes are comfortable, but they're so soft in that upper material that, because my toes do not naturally splay apart, not yet at least, I am working on that, they do kind of push together, which doesn't happen with some of my other toe shoes where those compartments actually kind of push them away from each other a little bit, almost like braces for your toes. This doesn't do that. The toes do rub against each other a little bit, so I'd like to see some improvements there. And again, like I mentioned before, I would like to see the quick pull Velcro tab forward here as well. And then this thing may be a fantastic all-around, well-rounded shoe. For now, I like it for the functions that I'm using it for, and I like it the way that it is. Again, if you're interested in shopping for a pair of 5 fingers, then head down to the link in our description. Guys, if you like this video, I would appreciate it if you would like and subscribe. There are a bunch of places where you can follow along with Eric and I. One of those is Instagram, where you can see the most up-to-date content that has to do with whatever the new products are that we are currently working with. You can also follow along with us on Strava, which is an app where you can log your activity and see the activity that we are logging. So if we go on a run in a certain shoe, you're going to see that run, the distance, kind of where we did it, and we will also log what shoe we were using for that. There's other things you can log as well, like paddleboarding and hiking and stuff like that. So we use it for that as well. If you want to follow along with us there, feel free to go and follow us. There will be a link down in the description. Eric has his own YouTube channel. It's called A Pilot's Life for Me. He focuses on really cool drone videography there. And I have my own YouTube channel called SeverShoots that has an Instagram page that goes along with it. Links to all these down in the description, but on that channel, I focus on gun industry reviews. Thank you for being here. We appreciate your view, and as always, we will catch you in the mountains.